starts crying again. Like, the baby's just crying in the worst possible times you could ever have a baby cry as an actor. Hey, I'm Justin Baldoni, director of It Ends With Us, and I am
Ryan Reynolds has finally spoken out, and rather than backing down, he's standing firm, saying he feels he wasn't even angry enough. This comes at a time when rumors in Hollywood are growing louder, with some insiders suggesting that both he and Blake Lively could be facing challenges when it comes to future casting opportunities. The situation has added a new layer of tension to an already closely watched controversy, especially as public figures rarely take such a direct and emotionally charged stance in the middle of ongoing scrutiny. On Popcorn Planet, Andy Sr. reacted by highlighting how intentional and unmistakably personal the statement felt, even joking about how difficult it must have been for Reynolds representatives to shape and finalize something so bold. The story gained traction after Reynolds publicly supported Blake Lively amid continued attention surrounding her legal situation, and his comments quickly ignited widespread discussion. Some audiences view his words as a strong show of loyalty and solidarity with his wife, while others believe the tone may have intensified an already delicate situation instead of calming it. The reaction across both social media and the entertainment industry has been deeply divided, with strong opinions on all sides, rather than fading quickly. The statement has expanded into a much larger conversation about how celebrities manage public image during controversy, and how personal relationships intersect with professional reputations. Many observers feel the message carried Reynolds' authentic voice rather than a carefully neutral PR response, reinforcing the idea that both he and Lively are choosing to handle the situation on their own terms, rather than relying entirely on traditional media strategies. Behind the scenes, speculation continues to build about how studios and executives may be responding. While no official statements have confirmed any concrete changes in hiring decisions, there is ongoing chatter suggesting increased caution, particularly regarding Blake Lively's public perception. Reynolds' decision to speak out has only amplified the spotlight, ensuring that both of them remain central figures in the discussion. At the same time, the situation highlights the broader pressures that come with fame, where even personal matters can quickly evolve into industry-wide debates with potential career implications. Adding another layer of contrast is the fact that recent professional successes still stand out. One of their films, produced on a relatively modest $50 million budget, went on to earn approximately $350 million worldwide, far exceeding expectations and demonstrating strong audience appeal. This makes the current controversy even more striking, as it shows how quickly public perception can shift, even for individuals with proven box office success and widespread recognition. As also noted by Puck, this situation, in their view, should have been a career-defining moment for Blake Lively, a chance that could have elevated her to an even higher tier of movie stardom. Instead, it argues she became engulfed in what it describes as a tsunami of negative publicity, which critics claim stemmed from her own choices. Similar sentiments have reportedly been echoed by Sony, which has suggested that these issues were self-inflicted and could have been avoided with simpler, more controlled decisions during production and promotion. Some online commentators point to relatively minor moments such as how individuals are positioned in group photos or how public appearances are examples of situations that might seem trivial at the time but later become heavily scrutinized in hindsight. Within that broader conversation, attention has also shifted back to Ryan Reynolds and his unusually direct public response, known typically for a light, comedic, and carefully managed public persona. His more forceful tone in this instance has stood out and sparked additional debate. For some observers, it signals a rare moment of unfiltered frustration, while others see it as further intensifying an already sensitive narrative. Much of the online discussion continues to revolve around how easily the situation might have been handled differently. Critics argue that simple decisions such as how cast members are arranged in group photos or how they navigate public events could have prevented much of the backlash now circulating online. Others, however, suggest that these interpretations are overly simplistic, reducing a complex media cycle to a handful of isolated moments. Still, the broader point being debated is how quickly small details can become amplified once they enter the public spotlight, especially in an era where social media accelerates scrutiny. As the conversation has grown, so too has speculation about internal industry reactions. While none of the claims about studio concerns or behind-the-scenes communications have been officially confirmed, they have contributed to a wider narrative about reputational risk in Hollywood. This has led to ongoing discussion about how studios weigh public perception alongside box office performance, and whether controversy can overshadow even strong commercial success. At the same time, attention is turned to shifting public sentiment. Some analytics reports being referenced online suggest a significant decline in positive perception for both Reynolds and Lively over recent years. Despite major commercial achievements such as the continued success of Deadpool and Wolverine, the contrast between financial performance and online sentiment has become a key talking point, highlighting how modern celebrity reputation is increasingly shaped not just by box office numbers, but but by the speed and intensity of digital discourse. Ultimately, the situation has evolved into a broader debate about Hollywood dynamics, how on-set relationships, promotional decisions, and media narratives intersect, and how quickly disagreements or controversies can escalate once they become part of the public conversation. There has also been significant pushback from critics who argue that Ryan Reynolds' framing of the situation does not fully align with other reported perspectives surrounding the production. Some commentators have questioned the portrayal of events as primarily a matter of workplace safety concerns, suggesting instead that there are conflicting accounts depending on whether the information comes from public statements, anonymous industry sources, or studio-level commentary. According to certain unverified reports circulating in entertainment media discussions, internal executives at Sony allegedly viewed the production environment in a far more complicated way than what has been presented publicly, though these claims remain unconfirmed and should be treated cautiously given the lack of official documentation. This contrast between Reynolds' public defense of Blake Lively and the reportedly differing internal interpretations has become a major focal point in online discourse. Supporters of the couple tend to interpret these discrepancies as evidence of misrepresentation or selective framing, arguing that public figures are often subject to exaggerated narratives once controversies gain traction. On the other hand, critics suggest that the gap between public messaging and alleged internal sentiment reflects a deeper breakdown in communication and reputation management within high-profile productions. As a result, the discussion has evolved beyond the individuals involved and into a broader debate about how Hollywood handles disputes, image control, and narrative shaping in the digital age. At the same time, social media sentiment tracking is frequently referenced in these conversations as a way to measure shifting public opinion. Some analyses shared online claim that both Reynolds and Lively have experienced noticeable declines in positive audience perception over recent years, despite continued commercial success in major film projects. While such metrics are often used to support arguments about reputational impact, they are also widely debated, as sentiment analysis can vary significantly depending on methodology, platform selection, and timing. Even so, the perception of a shift, whether fully accurate or not, has itself become part of the larger story, influencing how audiences interpret new developments. Blake Lively, in particular, has become a central figure in this broader narrative, with commentary ranging from strong support to sharp criticism. Some online discussions frame her public image as having undergone a rapid transformation, while others argue that this perception is driven more by amplified controversy than by substantial changes in her professional work. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni has also remained part of the wider conversation, with sentiment around him reportedly fluctuating as the situation continues to be discussed across social platforms and entertainment outlets. In many ways, all parties involved have become entangled in a cycle where public reaction continues to shape the narrative in real time. A recurring theme across much of this discourse is audience fatigue. Many observers suggest that the prolonged nature of the controversy has led to diminishing public interest and increased frustration, particularly as new claims and counterclaims continue to emerge without clear resolution. This has contributed to a situation where each additional development is interpreted through an already polarized lens, making consensus increasingly difficult to reach. Industry speculation has also grown around potential professional consequences, though much of it remains unverified. Some reports suggest that studios may be more cautious when evaluating future collaborations with high-profile talent involved in ongoing public disputes, especially when reputational risk could influence marketing strategies or audience reception. In Hollywood, where perception often plays a role in financial forecasting, even rumor-level controversy can influence internal decision-making long before any official confirmation is made. Amid these discussions, there is also analysis of how established franchises and long-standing intellectual property may serve as stabilizing factors for actors facing heightened scrutiny. In Reynolds' case, attention often turns to his association with major franchise roles, where audience familiarity and established character identity can sometimes offset external controversy. However, even this strategy is debated, as some industry watchers argue that modern audiences are increasingly responsive to off-screen narratives, meaning that brand recognition alone may not fully insulate performers from reputational effects. Overall, the situation has become emblematic of how modern celebrity culture operates, where public statements, online sentiment, industry speculation, and media framing all interact simultaneously, rather than a single linear narrative. The discourse surrounding Reynolds and Lively has evolved into a layered and highly contested space, where interpretation often depends as much on perspective as on verified fact. It's being framed in some commentary as a spectacular fall from grace for someone who, only a year ago, was widely described as one of the most influential figures in the industry and part of Hollywood's modern power couple image. One of the most damaging elements repeatedly discussed in this saga is the allegation of dominant or controlling behavior on set. While supporters argue that high standards and creative intensity are normal in filmmaking, Critics draw a distinction between professionalism and what they describe based on circulating claims as excessive control that allegedly creates tension among cast and crew. These accusations, whether fully accurate or not, have taken on a life of their own online and in industry discussion, forming a narrative that is increasingly difficult to separate from perception. In an environment like Hollywood, where workplace culture and power dynamics are under more scrutiny than ever, even the suggestion of misconduct can carry long-term reputational consequences. Being labeled difficult or abusive fairly or unfairly can follow talent far beyond a single project. And history has shown that box office success does not always fully erase those perceptions. As a result, the situation has evolved into a self-reinforcing dilemma. Every new statement, reaction, or defense is interpreted through an already established narrative, making it harder for either clarity or resolution to emerge. The fact that prominent entertainment trade publications such as Puck are reportedly engaging with the story has been seen by some observers as a signal that the tone of coverage is shifting. Traditionally, major industry outlets often maintain a cautious approach when covering A-list talent, especially when details are unverified or politically sensitive within the studio ecosystem. However, in this case, the discussion being framed around influence, narrative control, and behind-the-scenes dynamics suggests a more critical lens than what is typically seen in celebrity coverage. Whether this reflects a permanent shift in editorial approach or a temporary response to public interest remains debated, but it has undeniably increased the visibility of the controversy. Within that context, Ryan Reynolds' recent decision to double down on his position has been interpreted in different ways. Some see it as an attempt to take control of a rapidly evolving narrative, reframing criticism as external pressure or misunderstanding. Others view it as a risky escalation that may further entrench opposition rather than resolve tensions. By emphasizing his emotional stance and suggesting he was not angry enough, the response has been read by some as an effort to assert moral clarity, while critics argue it may instead intensify scrutiny and prolong the controversy. Another notable element in the ongoing discussion is the perceived silence from figures who might normally be expected to offer support in a high-profile Hollywood dispute. In past industry controversies, public backing from peers, collaborators, or influential colleagues often plays a role in shaping perception or softening backlash. In this case, observers have pointed out the relative lack of visible defense from other major industry names, interpreting it rightly or wrongly as a sign of caution or distancing. Whether this silence reflects private support, strategic neutrality, or genuine disengagement is unclear, but its absence has itself become part of the narrative. As the discussion expands, some online commentary has begun re-examining the couple's long-standing public image, the humor, the carefully curated social media presence, and the portrayal of an effortless, self-aware Hollywood relationship. Critics argue that these elements are now being reinterpreted through the lens of controversy, while supporters push back against what they see as retrospective over. This tension between public persona and private reality is a recurring theme in modern celebrity culture, where visibility often invites reinterpretation in real time. At a broader level, the situation has been framed by some as reflective of shifting power dynamics in the entertainment industry. Studios are often described as more cautious than in previous decades, with increased sensitivity to reputational risk, audience backlash, and social media reaction. Even major stars, regardless of past box office success, are not entirely insulated from these considerations. However, it is also important to note that many of these interpretations remain speculative and shaped by incomplete information, rather than confirmed industry policy or official studio positions. Ultimately, what emerges from the ongoing discourse is a highly polarized and rapidly evolving narrative, one where perception, speculation, and fragmented reporting often carry as much weight as verifiable fact. Whether this moment represents a temporary wave of controversy or a longer-term shift in how the industry views high-profile talent remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that the situation has placed Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively under an unusually intense level of public scrutiny, where every statement and silence alike is being analyzed as part of a much larger story about fame, influence, and accountability in modern Hollywood.